Something that is a real shame is when a very good game gets overlooked, and you hope that eventually, after, good word of mouth, just rumors of said game ends up spreading and more people have the opportunity to experience it. Now, in the case of South of Midnight, that definitely wasn't the case because this was slop of the highest accord, and the fact that it has Sweet Baby Inc. connections only was a contributing factor to this otherwise generic slop proposition. I mean, this thing was bad. I watched a little bit of gameplay on it. I've seen a ton of clips regarding it. We talked about the development cycle of it, how it ended up getting bastardized and subverted by a bunch of ideologues. So yeah, we already knew that this thing was going to be atrocious. And then upon launch, it was an absolute disaster. But there were some simps and there were some, shills that were out there saying that, oh no, it's on Game Pass, the things are doing great. But bro, here we are a month later and yeah, all those chuds, man, they're just so right again. But 1 month after release, no one is playing Sweet Baby Inc.'s South of Midnight. Player count plummets despite gaming media declaring it a success. Yeah, exactly. Like I said at the beginning, man, nothing is sadder than a great game that is overlooked, but nothing that is more earned and just is a bad game that gets overlooked. Despite what you might have heard from the gaming media, South of Midnight player count is anything but a success a month after its release. When South of Midnight was announced, it was promised something bold and narrative-driven action-adventure steeped in Southern Gothic folklore with a unique stop-motion art style. It debuted with fanfare during Microsoft Showcase events. Yeah, hell, one of the first big ones of the entire year, right? Wasn't it sandwiched between Avowed and Doom the Dark Ages? And hell, that was a part of that very successful stream that brought us, the announcement that Ninja Gaiden 4 was going to be coming out before the end of the month, and then also the shadow drop of Black 2. And then Compulsion Games was like, no, we've got a Black game too. And it's like, no, not that one. We don't want that one. I mean, that one's trash. We want the Ninja game. And it's like, no, but we got to get, shut up if you don't play it, you're racist. Oh, okay, cool. We see what you guys are going on. But from the moment that it was revealed, the gaming press rallied around it. Yeah, because it had... well, it ticked all of those boxes, and hell, okay, here's the thing, man. I have no problem playing a game as a girl. I have no problem playing a game as a black girl, even though I am neither of those things, right? No, everything is still in place. No, I'm neither of those things. If you make a good game, compelling characters, a world that is very interesting, there are many different avenues that video games can take that can make for a compelling experience. It's just South of Midnight had none of those. We even reviewed the trailer when it came out, and bro, they seen everything that we needed to. Just an insufferable girl boss with atrocious tropey dialogue. I'm good, man. I'm good. Even if it is $5, even if it eventually does get discounted to a couple of bucks, I don't need to dedicate any hardware space. I don't need to dedicate any, hard drive space to it. But yes, a month after launch, South of Midnight player count numbers tell a very different story. Almost nobody is playing it. Nobody's playing it, as you can see. Yeah, it's all-time peak players. Yes, 1,438 players. Oh, no, but everybody else is enjoying it over on Game Pass. Well, I wonder how many people actually played it because, well, Microsoft, as we've known, and I've talked about recently on several different occasions, yeah, the amount of people that are signing up for Game Pass, it's been stagnant since 2021. Nobody's signing up for these services. The streaming bubble or the subscription service bubble is about to burst on Microsoft. And if they didn't have Microsoft money, oh yeah, Game Pass would definitely be the relic of a bygone era. Speaking of which, on Steam, when player data is publicly available, South of Midnight peaked at, just over 1,438 players during its debut week. This morning, a full month after the game's release, the number plummeted to 162 concurrent players. And yet Microsoft and some gaming media outlets are still framing the game as a success. Why? We know exactly why. Compulsion Games, the studio behind South of Midnight, touted the million-player milestone with pride. Oh, they did the thing. They did the thing by telling you that, hey, man, there's a lot of players that are out here. Game Pass allows anyone with a subscription to try a game risk-free. Players don't have to buy it, don't have to finish it, and can delete it after 5 minutes with no consequences. Or in the case of Oh God, what were people theorizing? I think that was probably for Assassin's Creed Shadows, something we're gonna have to talk about later this week as well, and something that we've talked about ad nauseum on the channel. Is yeah, okay, Ubisoft. It was either Ubisoft or EA. It was either Veilguard or it was Shadows. Whatever, same slop, different day. But they were also counting, or had the potential to count simple downloads. Could be on multiple different systems. Maybe you have your PC upstairs, and then you have your more living room ready setup. If you just download them on both, thinking that okay, yeah, might have a better experience on your desktop as opposed to your set-top box. Or maybe if you have a Steam Deck and you wanted to subject yourself to public ridicule by playing Shadows in public, you could go ahead and do that. They were counting all of those, just downloads. You didn't even have to play it, but the moment that you engaged with the process, they were counting that as a player interaction. So who knows, man? Maybe South of Midnight, or Microsoft was counting just people looking at the trailer, just highlighting it on Game Pass. Maybe that's what they're doing, okay? So in short, that million figure, okay, 1 million players, 1 million interactions figure is based on exposure, not retention, not satisfaction, and certainly not success in a traditional sense. But honestly, man, here's another thing. There are a ton of Sweet Baby Inc. affiliated games that get loving, glowing, glazing press from the game's journalist sphere. Kotaku describing South of Midnight as fantastic. The Verge called the game a worship praise song of black southern culture. And I'm sure Polygon, because they were still open at this time, probably also said it's stunning and brave and super important and all of that crap. But all of it ultimately boils down to Sweet Baby Inc. Whenever they're affiliated with the game, whenever they have a heavy hand in the creation process, ultimately delivers a dud. Can you point to one specific example where they are integral to the creation process? No. You can't use God of War Ragnarok. They did one thing for one character and everybody overwhelmingly says that was the most cringe aspect to that. No, even hell, Spider-Man 2, right? Insomniac's Spider-Man 2, a huge drop-off from the first one. Hell, even a huge drop-off from that derivative DLC, the Miles Morales experience, okay? Sweet Baby Inc., hugely a part of that game. How well did that fare? How about that PC port really just burning up the charts, huh? But Unknown 9 Awakenings. Oh, right. We don't want to talk about that one. But yeah, huge success on that one. Thanked Kim Belair specifically, right? Flintlock. Same fate as South of Midnight, another game that was subverted by ideologues that actually showed huge promise. Like, I didn't really have much of an expectation for South of Midnight, but Flintlock, man, that one could have been so good. Just hearing about how the game was originally conceptualized, that's a travesty. And then, of course, the one that over the past couple of years that really put Sweet Baby Inc. on the map, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. They are a cancer with just such an efficient fatality rate in the years to come. Their efficacy is going to have to be studied, because how do they continue to get work? Well, they just end up threatening people. Case in point, explosive leaked clip confirms Sweet Baby Inc. Pressured developers to submit to narrative demands. Big shock. In a revelation that confirms years of speculation, a leaked clip from Sweet Baby Inc.'s internal discussions have surfaced, showing narrative designer Cameron Wild describing how a development studio was repeatedly pressured into changing the identity of its characters until it relented. The footage exposed by Master of the TDS and Writing Raven of Gothic Therapy provides the clearest evidence yet that Sweet Baby Inc.'s narrative consulting process involves far more creative guidance for developers. It involves calculated emotional and ideological pressure. Because we also heard something about this beforehand, including, shout out to Black Myth Wukong, how Sweet Baby Inc. Propositioned or tried to leverage their sway with the gaming press where, hey, you better, sign us up for, what was it, $5 or $8 million consultancy fee. Otherwise, we could be leaking stuff to, places like IGN. They've got the articles already pre-written that you guys are just, just really fomenting a very sexist culture over here. And then those Chinese developers are like, who are you? Fucking go touch grass. And yeah, the articles came out, and Game Science, the team behind Black Myth Wukong, wow, 2.3 million concurrent players on Steam alone, and 5 million sales in just a couple of days. Yeah, stands in opposition to the pressure campaign that SBI has been launching. So, This latest development adds significant weight to the growing concerns that Sweet Baby Inc. is not merely a consulting firm, but a gatekeeping mechanism steering game development towards rigid ideological outcomes, even against the will of studios. In a leaked clip, Wild recounts an interaction with a developer that resisted suggestions about character identity. Rather than collaborating towards a creative solution, Wild described pressing the studio repeatedly until it gave in. Yeah, pressuring them. And Kim Belair, CEO of Sweet Baby Inc., has previously said, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what is going to happen if they don't give you what you want. But yes, being met with less than optimal response to that, and then having to say it again and then again and again, Wild noted in the clip. The SBI narrative designer also reflected on leveraging personal emotion to make the argument more compelling, admitting that vulnerability was deployed not for mutual understanding, but as a pressure tactic. The intent, according to Wild, was not to inform or advise, but to instill enough emotional weight to force compliance. How can they keep getting away with it? Well, because they're funded by taxpayer money, man. Like, this is always how this ends up working. Something that is wildly unpopular. How do you continue to function? Oh, right. It's because it's happening on your dime. Sweet Baby Inc. connected developers appear to approve taxpayer-funded grants for themselves in government game funding expose. Big shock, right? Another expose by Gothic Therapy, master of the TDS and writing Raven. Even after a lot of people have moved on from just dunking on SBI, they're out here doing the good work on it. So yes, a new bombshell investigation has revealed that they describe as a closed circle of game developing elites in France, funneling millions of taxpayer-fueled government game funding to studios they themselves operate or are closely affiliated with. I wonder if Sandfall Interactive, the creative team behind Expedition 33, got a whiff of any of that cash. Kind of doubt it, looking at those main characters and how, the well-received that game is, full stop. The latest expose builds on the channel's previous reports into Wings Interactive, the indie game fund tied to Landfall Games and Sweet Baby Inc. We've talked about them ad nauseum before. Go and check out the previous videos if you're so inclined or interested. The first cracks in the narrative appeared when Gothic Therapy exposed Wings Interactive as what appeared to be a front for Landfall Games, despite public claims of independence. The fund, which promoted itself as a champion of diverse developers, shared staff, office spaces, and funding ties with the very studios it's supposedly separate from. Gothic Therapy also highlighted connections to Sweet Baby Inc., a controversial progressive and narrative consulting firm whose CEO, Kim Belair, sat on Wings' selection board. Yes, just giving you a little bit of background that we've already been through, but the deeper Gothic Therapy dug, the more troubling the pattern became. At the heart of the issue is France's Centre National du Cinéma et de l'Image Anami, CNC. How the fuck do you get CNC out of that? A government agency that funds film, animation, and video games with millions of euros annually. And decisions about how this government game funding is distributed are heavily influenced by the Syndicat National du Jeu Vidéo, SNJV, a industry board composed of top game developers and executives. How much money does Ubisoft get off of this? I'm just wondering. So, list of board members and the grants for their studios: Wings Interactive, Piece of Cake Studios, Old Skull Games, Homo Ludens, Darewise Entertainment, Cellulose Online, Spiders. I've heard of that one before. Received one confirmed grant before joining, but also a co-founder of the Women in Games France. Okay, maintaining the same circles of influence. Current president of SNJV. How interesting. Another corrupt governmental entity. Stop me if you've heard this before. But then also Sweet Baby Inc. being a part of shady funding schemes. Color me surprised. And also Sweet Baby Inc. being a part of a game that is just loved by the critics but hated and rejected by the public. Stop me if you've heard this before. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.